We're back in the Marketing Week Live TV studio just outside the editor's stage here. If you're wandering around the show floor, come and say hi. Here's someone who has just come and said hi. This is Carl D. Marci, MD, who is Chief Neuroscientist at Nielsen Consumer Neuroscience. You've just been speaking over there on the Inside Headline stage there. I'm curious, I'm really fascinated, really curious about where we are in consumer neuroscience at the moment, and you've been working with Nielsen on this for a little while now, so you're the best person to speak to. Where are we? How mature is this area of science and insight at the moment?
Well, I think we're making great progress. I started in this field in 2006, and we went through a little bit of a hype cycle where I think some suppliers were maybe over-promising and under-delivering.
Yeah.
But now, 10 plus years on, and having the backing of a company like Nielsen, which has been around for 90 years, we're starting to see two big shifts. One is we're moving away from what I used to call special occasion use. Oh, we have a problem with this advert, we gotta fix it. Call the neuroscientist.
Yep.
To more everyday use because the world's become more complex.
Yeah.
and it works. The second shift is getting beyond just consumer packaged goods, but also we're seeing automotive and technology and other categories or other verticals start to embrace these tools again because I think they give deeper insights.
You mentioned you've been working in this field for 12 years now almost. The world has changed a lot in that time. When we start looking at smartphones are roughly 10, 11 years old now, and social media, our modes of interaction, of engagement with content that we're consuming have changed quite a lot, certainly in terms of attention span. So how has that challenged the work that you're doing, or actually does that help provide more of a case for the work that you're doing?
Yeah, so I think 2 points. One, it's a measurement challenge. How do you measure essentially media multitasking?
Yeah.
And we've done that both in the home and in the lab, and we see a tremendous amount of media multitasking, particularly when the ad comes on the TV. So you're at home, you got your smartphone, the content switches to the ads, and now you're kind of doing this. And that creates a real barrier to engagement. And as you say, number two, that's an opportunity for us because we've got the best tools in the industry to literally measure second by second how engages your audience. And we know that consumers will give your ad a chance, but they'll only give it a brief chance.
Yeah.
So you really have just a moment to hook them in.
So take me to the front line here, to the nuts and bolts. When you're engaging in a study, how does it work? How are you measuring activity and engagement in individuals?
It's a great question. So we actually have multiple tools in our toolbox. So EEG is sort of the foundation, right? So we're measuring, using sensors, direct brain activity, and deriving attention, emotion, and memory metrics from that.
Yeah.
We're also using facial coding, so we can tell when someone smiles or frowns or looks surprised. And we're using eye tracking to tell exactly where people are looking on the screen. And then we're also using some survey methodology. So we have multiple measures that are really capturing engagement. And by engagement, I mean attention to something that emotionally impacts you and leaves a memory trace. So we have measures of attention, measures of emotion, and measures of memory.
So it's multimodal here. There's not one particular mode which is your silver bullet. It's about facial coding combined with the EEG and so on. Is there a sense, and I guess this is the case in any study, but I'm curious, particularly in your field, that particularly when you're wearing an EEG headset, they can be, you're wearing one, let's put it that way, they are quite invasive.
Clearly, yes.
So how do you deal with that level of invasion and kind of normalize that so that you're getting genuine insight from that?
Yeah, it's a great question. So there's a couple of things we do. One is we're baselining everyone to themselves.
Right.
So we're sort of, how are you engaged relative to some tasks that we do before we even show the advert?
Yeah.
Number one. Then number two, and I think more importantly, is that we validate these methodologies against actual behaviors in the marketplace.
Yeah.
So we've seen over and over again, believe it or not, someone sitting still, being paid to watch an ad with a bunch of wires and technology in the room actually predicts with a very high degree of accuracy what an audience will do in the real world. And that gives us confidence that these metrics are actually working.
And of course, before we finish, the other area that's changed an awful lot in the 10, 12 years that you've been in the field is the power of technology to crunch numbers, to crunch data, and to spot patterns or so. And we talk a lot about AI and ML. I've been bringing that up in pretty much every conversation I can because I find it fascinating.
Yeah.
With organizations here at these shows where they have a lot of data points to try and get some insight into. I take it technology must be making your life more interesting when you're analyzing these large data sets.
Well, I think that sword cuts both ways, right? On the one hand, I think there's a belief among big data folks that you don't need anything else. We have everything we need, right? And I'll believe that when I see it, because I think on the other side of the equation is, you can't get closer to consumers than we do. Mm-hmm. And I kind of think of consumer neuroscience as the last mile. And so I think we're going to move to a world where, and we already are a bit, where the big data and the small data and the complex data are going to come together and work together for even bigger insights down the road.
And I guess that's where that's going to lead to, is for this field to become business as usual, not like you say for the kind of accident and emergency situations, and making it accessible to all kinds of brands, to all kinds of organizations, not just those that think they've got the big budgets to afford services like this.
That's right, and I'll leave you with one last data point. We did a survey with one of the big associations in the US, and 90% of marketers said that consumer neuroscience will either complement or replace existing or traditional methodologies.
90%?
90%. So that means only a small number think it's a fad, and I think that shows that we're making real progress in the field.
A lot of confidence there. Listen, Carl, fascinating to talk to you. Thank you very much for taking some time out of your busy day here at Marketing Week Live and Inside Show.
Pleasure.
Thank you.